Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf. And happy Sunday, and happy second Advent if you celebrate that, and happy Nikolaus, Santa Claus, if you celebrate that. I decided to celebrate this Sunday Advent Nikolaus with a book haul. 7 books I bought recently that I want to share with you. And the first one is a book that I gifted myself. I mean, I gifted all the books to myself because I bought them all myself. But this one was a bit expensive, but it's just a sort of early Christmas present. And that is Claudia Rankine, Just Us. Let me see, this book is so big that it doesn't fit together with my big head on the screen. Claudia Rankine. Here you can see it, and then I cover it up again. Just Us, an American Conversation, which was published earlier this year in September. And if you watch my to-be-released video, the TBR video for September, I mentioned this book, and ever since I thought, I'm just going to splurge myself and buy it. Claudia Rankine was born in 1963 in Jamaica. She is a poet and a playwright. And you might know, I think her most famous book is Citizen, which I really loved. And she writes about race. And this one is also about race and white supremacy and how to engage in a conversation. And she uses texts and pictures and poetry. Let me see. For instance, can you see this? So it's a text and a picture and then essay-like reflections. Yeah, I love her. I think she is really intellectually engaging and thought-provoking. So I don't know, maybe I'll save this to read over Christmas, but I'm really happy that I bought it. Second book I bought, I already started, as you can see from the hanging thingy here, Mary Gabriel, 9th Street Women, which was published in 2018. It's quite a chunkster. This thing is just doesn't want to be in the back. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, Mary Gabriel. She is an American journalist and biographer. She lives in Italy now. And this book is about 5 female artists. Can you see that? Lee Krasner, Ellen de Koning, Grace Hardigan, Joan Mitchell, and Ellen Frankenthaler. And if you have never heard of any of those, don't be surprised. That's what this book is about, to tell us the story, how important these 5 women were for the development of the modernist art in the US. Think Jackson Pollock, these people are famous, and as always, the women just didn't, really get a place in history. So I think it's fabulous that Mary Gabriel wants to right this wrong. And I read the introduction and started with the first chapter, and it's really well written as far as I can tell from the introduction. And I'm looking forward, and the book is heavy, so I'm going to put it down now. And I also bought some fiction. Not only non-fiction, but the 2 books I just mentioned are not the only non-fiction books I bought. But to the fiction first. The next book I want to talk to you about is this one, Laila Lalami, The Other Americans, which was published in 2019. And I had this book on my radar ever since it was published because I really like the author. Laila Lalami was born in Morocco, but currently lives and teaches in California. And I read a previous book by her, The Moors Account, which I really, really enjoyed. This one is sort of it sounds a bit like a murder mystery, but that's just the premise. So we have an immigrant, Driss. I think it's a Moroccan immigrant. Yes, a Moroccan immigrant. And one night he gets hit and killed by a car. And then you have the story of people surrounding Driss. So you have his widow, Mariam, you have his daughter, but you also have an illegal immigrant who witnessed the accident, but who is afraid to come forward. So it's, as far as I understand it, it's the murder mystery, quote unquote, is just sort of the angle that Lalami uses to talk about race, immigration, connection, family. It sounded really good, and I finally bought it. So let me know if you already read it, because the book is more than a year old, and I hope I didn't miss by. And there's even more fiction. Tiny little book. Sylvia Townsend Warner, Lollipop Willows, first published in 1926. Sylvia Townsend Warner was an English author, British author from the early 20th century. She died in 1978. And I read one book by her. I think it was I think it was last year, Summer Will Show, which was not that much of a success for me, but I definitely wanted to give her another try. And this is her most well-known book, and I will be buddy reading this in the second half of December with Kathleen and Adam. It's quite short, and the main character is the title character, Lolly Willows, a woman who lives in London, I assume the beginning of the 20th century, 1920s or something, and she has this overbearing family, and she just wants to break free, so she decides to move to the countryside. And there, hopefully she finds, I don't know, happiness. So I'm looking forward to this, because, like I said, I was interested in this author, but the first book I read was just not quite for me. So I hope I have better luck with her most well-known work. And the theme with trying to give an author another try, even though the first book was not that successful for me, continues with the next one. Another non-fiction book, a collection of essays by Esme Wei-Jan Wang, The Collected Schizophrenias, glaring, published last year, 2019. I had this book on my list as well, but I did read a novel by her published in 2016, The Border of Paradise. I read last year in the summer, and it didn't gel with me. It just the characters and everything, but this is nonfiction, and it talks about a subject that I'm really interested in, mental health. As far as I know, Esme Wei-Jun Wang struggled herself with schizophrenia, and this is a collection talking about this illness and her personal experience with it. So despite the fact that I did not really like The Border of Paradise, I hope the essays will sway me in favor of this author. And the next book is again non-fiction, a tiny little book about memoir writing. Vivian Gornick, The Situation and the Story, and I completely forgot when this book was published, 2001. Vivian Gornick is an American author born in 1935, and this summer I read her own memoir, The Odd Woman and the City, which was a birthday present from a friend of mine, and I really loved it. I sort of forgot about this author for some reason. I know that I read a couple of her books way back, and this one was a book that interested me anyway, talking about some of the most well-known memoirs and personal narratives of the 20th century, and I love books about writing and memoir. So I'm really very much looking forward to this one, Vivian Gornick, and I like the cover as well. This sort of how the personal narrative, first it's nothing and then it comes to something. So I'm excited to read this one, of course, because otherwise I wouldn't have bought it now, would I? And the last book is fiction again, and German fiction. Anne Weber, Annette, ein Heldinnen-Epos. So Annette, a hero's epic, something like that. This book sticker, but I will be able to remove it because it's only on the book. But I will do that after the video because I want to share my anger about this sticker with you. Anyway, this book was published this year, and it was awarded the German Book Prize. Anne Weber, the author, I don't think you can even see the name of the author. It's all the way on top here. Anne Weber was born in 1963. And she is a German-French writer and translator. She writes in French and German. She self-translates her books also, but she also translates work of German fiction into French. I have never read her, I have to admit, but I wanted to read at least one more book in the German language this year. As you know, one of my goals for 2020 was to read more German books, at least one or two each month. And together with Mel, we have this group on Goodreads, Read German Books 2020. I will leave a link to the group down below. And we might even consider continuing this group in 2021. I don't know yet. But it helped me because I read, so far I read 15 or 16 books by German authors, Austrian, Swiss, so German writing authors, and that is double the amount of German books that I read in the year before. Anyway, so this is about a woman, Anne Beaumanoir. Yes, Anne Beaumanoir, but she was called Annette. She was born in the 1920s in France. She gained fame, quote unquote, during the Second World War because she was part of the resistance. And in 1959, she was sent to prison because she was engaged then in the France-Algeria war, the war for independence from Algeria, and she supported the Algerian side. This is not a nonfiction book. I said it. It's a fictionalized account of the life of this woman, but the life sounds fascinating. So I'm really curious to see what Anne Weber does with this woman's life. Anyway, these were the 7 books that I bought the beginning of December. I'm not sure whether it will be all of the books that I bought in December because it is Christmas after all. So. And I might get book vouchers and stuff like that. But anyway, for today, for Sunday, this is it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. As always, I'm looking forward to your comments. If you have read any of the books that I hauled, let me know what you thought of them. And I'll see you all soon in the next one.